Hey everyone. So, chapter 308 of Black Clover was absolutely phenomenal. Easily one of the best chapters that we've gotten in the entire Spade arc. Probably one of the highest highs that we've had in the entire Spade arc. I think this moment that we had with Yuno at the end of the chapter was easily the best character moment that we've ever gotten from him, and one of the best character moments that we've gotten in the entire arc so far. So let's talk about chapter 308 of Black Clover, which did some amazing things with the lore, with the characters, and with the art as well. So let's go. Make sure to join the Discord, like and subscribe if you want more content like this. Appreciate all of you for subscribing. There's almost 1,000 subscribers or more than that. So yeah, big ups. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. And yeah, let's get into the review. So let's now move into what is the big major part of this chapter, which happens to be Yuno's characterization, Yuno's progression, and most importantly development. Because for casual readers, Yuno has never been an interesting, quote-unquote interesting character to them, and they always say, oh, he has no expressions, he's so cold, he's just aspal, he's just all that stuff, all the things that you can think about that a 2017 person would say about Yuno is probably what they feel about Yuno, like even if they don't even if people don't actually explicitly state that, which is really sad, because if you actually look at the nuances of Yuno, you can see how cocky and arrogant he is, and you can see how like the power that he's built through his training always serves him, and it's not just like he's some aspally character, and it's just like a lot of things to there's a lot of nuance to him, there's a lot of depth to him when you see his relationship with the Golden Dawn members and stuff like that, which I'm still so angry about, that we never got a solo Golden Dawn arc. We should have definitely forget a big Golden Dawn arc, right? We could have gotten small ones on the same size as Kiten, right? So it's a very huge shame that we never got a Golden Dawn arc, even in the anime, but and everybody says that the Golden Dawn massacre was not that big of a deal, while of course it was a big deal for Yuno. We actually never saw him actually actively talk about it, except for when he says he wants to save Captain Vengeance during the captain's conference. So other than that, he never actually mentioned it, so it just felt like a throwaway thing, where of course we should never forget how Tabata likes to rate, where like a big important moment is always saved for a later portion where it'll be important to the character and the story. So that's what ends up happening for this as well, where like the Golden Dawn massacre makes a massive resurgence, and like we'll get to that panel, but it's phenomenal how Yuno as a character, and that archetype is getting broken down, that aura of, oh, I'm better than you, and like all I am going to do is like look for my goal, which was established during the Kiten arc, which I find fascinating because it's directly referenced when Zenon is destroying the Golden Dawn, where he's like, it's not that you're weak, I'm simply far stronger, and Yuno had a very similar moment to that in the Kiten arc. So I think Tabata went back to that arc to bring back a lot of stuff, especially for languishing Yuno as well, and now for normal Yuno as well, and very interesting stuff. I really like the characterization being harkened back to what seems to be now in retrospect a pivotal moment for Yuno's character, along with Languish's, of course, because that was when he was introduced. So like let's get into Yuno's monologue, which is, I feel like Noelle's monologue was a little more hard-hitting for me, because of how we always knew that there was something to Yuno deep down, right? But then for Noelle, I felt like her thing was over and like we were starting a new arc for her, when that was not the case, where like the underlying depth for her was just, the perspective was just shifted for you to understand the underlying depth for her. But whereas for Yuno, this has been a long time coming. Like the build-up for this has been unreal, but I feel like it's not like a huge POV shifter, whereas that was the case for Noelle. But I'm not saying that this is not better than Noelle. It feels like it's a much better, much bigger moment for Yuno, rather than being a much more presented moment, rather, let's say, So because I feel like the foil for Noelle was really great because of her connection to, her mother, and like the death of her mother and how it's affected the Solo family and all that stuff, right? But for this is not like this. He has a connection to the Spade kingdom, right? Zenon, but Yuno doesn't have a connection to the Spade kingdom yet, which is the important part of this chapter. We'll get to that. But he does have a connection to the Golden Dawn, but we've not actually seen a lot of the Golden Dawn and their connection to Yuno. So it's a little thing, but I'm not. The thing is, overall to Yuno's character, this is far more important than Noelle's chapter was to Noelle. But I feel like in the presentation of it, I feel like in the moment, Noelle's was done a little bit better because of the very, very cohesively established connections. But anyway, let's get into the monologue because oh my god, this is some peak fiction, dog. Like this is some amazing stuff where Yuno's thinking about how like so far nothing has worked. Not as for like, and at that same time we're getting a shot to Bell on his torso as well, passed out, which is important to show because Bell is what Yuno was pulling from. Bell's strength was what Yuno had very importantly placed as his source of power. So to see her fall on his chest, along with the dialogue saying so far nothing has worked, and now that Bell is also passed out, thinking what can he possibly do when he gets up is really is just like very nice positioning of the visual storytelling along with the actual dialogue. And of course we have the famous Black Clover villain dialogue, which is "I have won," and like, come on, dude. Come on, Zenon. You should know. You're a villain in Black Clover. The second you say that, you're gonna lose. Like, you say "I have won" and you lose until you like decimate the bodies. And even if you do that, like it's very difficult to like actually retain your victory if you say "I have won," because that's just not how it works. I think Magicula said "I have won" like 3 times, and I'm playing this for laughs, but I'm really upset about it because it's such a repetitive thing with the villains. We're like, "Yeah, I have won, bro," and like boom, immediately something else happens that like they've not won yet. And I feel like just like we should have some variation in their victory dialogue, but I digress because most importantly, let's continue on with the monologue where Yuno's thinking, did I make the wrong choice? So what was the choice, or what is the choice that Yuno is actually talking about? What does that mean? Does that mean he's talking about him putting himself at the at the fighting place, and he's like come to Zenon to actually try and fight against him? Or is he talking about something else? Is he talking about choosing the Golden Dawn? Is he talking about the personality and the persona that he's put up, where like he's like, yeah, I'm strong and like I'll defeat everybody? Is that what he's talking about? Because it's really curious, and I'll probably get into this in a Yuno analysis video, which definitely is coming, and I'll probably make it at the end of the Spade arc, because this seems to be where his character is supposed to be peaking, and I really love that. I mean, of course there's still opportunities for his character to do something crazy, but this feels like a monumental moment for him, so like the character analysis for him would be perfect to be done here. So I'm really curious as to what he thinks was the wrong choice that he made, because as we keep moving forward, like my comrades were killed, half his team, half the Golden Dawn was destroyed. He spoke out of turn at the captain's meeting, and he was like forced Noct essentially to pick him for the invasion unit. He desperately went into special training and specifically trained for Zenon, and yet he was defeated. And we have one of the most beautiful shots in the story ever so far, with crying and just absolutely tearing up. And the importance of this panel cannot be underspecified. It's insane how important and rich this moment is for his character. Of course, not a lot of casual readers will know, but like literally in chapter 1, Sister Lily established that the time when Yuno and Asta fought against some dude because he stole Yuno's pendant, that was the last time Yuno shed a tear. It has been an entire decade since Yuno cried. Even when he lost against Zenon back during the Golden Dawn massacre, if you look at it closely, not a single tear dropped. He was just screaming and still holding on that pain inside. But finally, in a moment of desperation, he's able to finally let out those tears. He's finally been bottling up all his emotions, because that's the literal reason for why his character is the way he is because he believes that crying is a sign of weakness. And Tabata beautifully, might I add, I'll get to this a little later, beautifully subverts that and pretty much presents to us visually, it's not explicitly stated, and this is something that you need to really understand the core character of Yuno to understand, is that him bottling up all his emotions was the wrong choice. Him actually feeling the feelings that he's feeling and expressing those feelings is what makes him powerful, because it is because of this emotional outburst and like his coming together with his sense of self and reaffirming of his vow with Asta that he is able to become who he is. And it's a beautifully established and beautifully presented moment for that him letting go of that bottle that he's kept inside of his emotions is what gives him the strength. And, in the next line, is this the end? And in the fan translations, we translated it to, is this really how it ends? But Viz went with something I absolutely adore. Viz said, is this all I was worth? And like, we come back to it in the next page, and I'll get into this dialogue. But outside of that, dude, oh my god, Tabata went insane with we'll get to that one specific panel, but the dialogue is just so good. They call me a genius, the hope of the village. I was chosen. I was recognized. I was envied. I was hated. I was entrusted. I lost. But I vowed. Him and I, we vowed together. So there's no way I can let it end like this. Is absolutely chill inducing. Every time I look at this panel, I'm reminded of all the weight that Yuno has been carrying his entire life, and how he, in his own way, twisted way, might I add, he was bottling it up, and how in his twisted way he had perceived all the praise that he has gotten, and how he let it get to his head, and at the same time how he didn't let it get to his head, by giving Tabata giving even more depth to him and like actually presenting us with his loss in front of him. Was beautiful. And let's get into the Viz dialogue here, because they did an amazing thing by going for, is this all I was worth? And this is not all I am. Is this all I am? Was such a beautiful line of dialogue to have chosen. And I even tweeted this out a little while ago, because this imagery is so beautiful, because you can feel the weight that he felt on his shoulders, presented with the crosses all across, and the lives lost that basically due to his powerlessness, like he was envied, he was, the powerful, he was the chosen, he was entrusted, but he lost because he was he was so without power when he was fighting Zenon. Now Zenon does say, it's not that you're weak, I'm just far stronger, but to that doesn't matter, because if you lose, you're powerless. If you lose, you're weak. That's what it is to him. And it's beautifully portrayed here with him standing in front of the Golden Dawn graveyard, literally, and like I said before, it's never, his connection to the Golden Dawn is never stated, but this one panel alone immediately tells you how much importance is to be placed on that massacre. And this is the first time that Tabata blatantly kills off people, and that is for a reason. It's not just, it of course works as a narrative tool to set the stage for the arc to come, but the thing is, of course, in classic Tabata fashion, he doesn't go back to it until the most emotionally resonant moment is it's required for the most emotionally resonant moment, and that's what this happens to be. And we're just presented with the most powerful image that we can possibly get of that loss, because you can't really just say, oh yeah, I lost, and maybe show him crying or whatever. No, but this is so much more powerful, because he is faced with his loss, he's faced with his weakness, he's faced with his powerlessness, and he's faced with the weight that he's been carrying and the falsehood that comes along with him presenting himself as a person that he is. His coveted 4-leaf luck that propelled him throughout the story has finally completely failed him. His luck has completely become the opposite of that for his squad, And, he was the chosen one, but he lost. Everything that he stood for is completely brought down, because the one thing that Yuno had going for him was that he never lost. And outside of all of that, encompassed outside of that, within the core of his character, is that he, even if you go back to the Royal Knight exam arc when he's defeating Alec Dora, he says, Belle, let me do this on my own. because the most important aspect to Yuno is not using Bel's power, which we've established earlier, but what's actually inside him to the core of his character is that he believes and he understands and he definitely knows that he himself is a lot more than the four-leaf luck. He himself is a lot more than Bel, because he believes that the hard work that is instilled in him because of his rivalry with Asta is what has genuinely been the foundation of his power outside of just the amps that he gets throughout the series, right? Because him working hard, like, forget that he's part of the royal bloodline or whatever, you know, like, obviously that's an amplification, but him working hard is who Yuno is. And of course, Tabata doesn't show it, but the truth of the matter is, if you're like actually go into the depth of his character, you would understand that that's what he is, and that's what the core of his character is. And the worst part for him is that not just that four-leaf luck that failed him, the work that he put in outside of that luck actually failed him, which is absolutely phenomenal. Because again, let's go back to Viz's dialogue, where, is this all I was worth? Is this all I am? And no, this is not all I am. Will he be defined by his failure? Will he be the four-leaf luck that he lost? Will he be just another death at the hands of this villain that is Zenon? Is that really all he was? No, that is not all he is, because of the vow that he made with Asta. Absolutely phenomenally emotionally engaging moments. I think narratively this is such a masterpiece of a moment. And you know, with Yuno just like getting up with the raw emotion that he felt from the previous panel is just, I think Tabata executed this to perfection, absolute perfection. We've not even gotten to the plot twist yet. That's how brilliant this chapter was. You know, not plot twist, like plot relevant moment, you know, this is like just the character moment wise. Tabata snapped, absolutely snapped with Yuno's characterization this chapter. And God, this is honestly, I can't get over how beautifully well done this chapter was. So, moving on from that, we'll finally get into what appears to be the biggest talking point for the entire chapter, which happens to be the elven soul. So, again, I see a lot of people who are not really paying attention, who have not paid attention, and it's not like you need to pay attention to every single panel in order to read a story, enjoy a story, you know, so you can't really blame them for not, like, fully paying attention, but, you know, of course, it becomes a problem when they call this an asshole. But what's important to note is that this is the elven soul that was inside Yuno that is talking to him. The elven soul, which is inside Yuno, is the hybrid son of Licht and Tetia, and Tetia had wind magic and Licht had sword magic. And if you guys remember back during the elf arc, Yuno was able to use wind magic, and he used Sword of Zephyr, which happens to be sword magic of Licht, and the wind magic of Tetia, you know. And what's important or like interesting to note is that one of the characters, when Yuno was using Sword of Zephyr, literally said Tetia's wind attribute and sword magic, which is really confusing to me, because and like going back to Licht as well, Licht's magic attribute is sword magic is so confusing, because like, how is your attribute sword? I feel like attributes need to be elemental, right? But it's just weird that he would just have sword magic. Like, what does that even mean? Like, just thinking back to it now. And so it appears that the Sword of Zephyr is a demonstration of Licht's sword magic, and that's what that was. And Yuno's wind magic throughout his entire life has not been his own magic, which was a beautiful, insane plot twist that we never saw coming. And it makes a whole lot of sense, actually, because like the elven soul obviously is the son of Tetia, and she had wind magic, so it makes sense that the hybrid was using wind magic and Yuno was using the hybrid's wind magic, which again raises a very interesting question. Why did Yuno choose to use, or like subconsciously at least, choose to use the elven child's magic and rather than his own magic, right? Which is a little confusing to me. Maybe like Tabata will explain. Obviously, I'm waiting for Tabata to explain this. But if we assume that the elven soul has been with him since birth and awakened within him because it died as a fetus, and obviously you would expect the elven soul to wake up at the age of its death, right? Because I think it makes sense for the rest of the characters that they all woke up at the age of their deaths, right? Within the other character, because I think Patri woke up at around 15 years old when William was around 15 years old, and immediately went and got his grimoire. And that's the case for the other elves as well. So it does make a whole lot of sense that when the host that they're inhabiting is the age of the elf when they died, they would wake up. So I think that's my headcanon right now as for when the elven souls actually woke up, because even Marie's elf woke up inside her when she was 10 years old, and the rest of them were, I think, at the same age as when the rest of them died. So yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense to me personally. So yeah, that's what this elven soul is. So the elven soul has been awake inside Yuno for so long, and he's subconsciously been using its power. And the four-leaf clover grimoire that the Yuno has been using throughout this entire story was not even his, and it was the elven soul's. And it's crazy because he's finally inside the grimoire tower that I spoke about earlier, and he finally gets his own spade grimoire, and there's a light shooting out of him, like going through the heavens, and like Patri and like the rebel people are like, oh my god, Yuno-sama. And like Patri confirms basically that his wind magic was Licht and Tet, his son's magic, and like information overload based on just these couple of pages, which is god, insane. You guys don't understand the amount of hype I felt during the when the leaks were dropping, dude. Oh my god, I lost my mind, absolutely, and for absolutely right reasons, because this is just like a phenomenal moment for and like just like overall, like this is the craziest thing we've seen in Black Clover, with a person getting 2 grimoires. And personally, again, to me it makes sense because I feel like Yuno's reincarnation is a mix between the reincarnation that we got with Patri and William, combined with the reincarnation that we've gotten with the other elves, combined with its own flavor of what a reincarnation it is. So I think there's 3 different aspects to Yuno's reincarnation, which enables him to be able to use 2 grimoires at the same time. And oh my god, just insane to me that we literally have a dude like literally dual wielding 2 grimoires. Like, how insane is that? We barely know anything about grimoires, and this is the way that Tabata decides to use them, just like throw the shit out there, just like hype us up like insane. And I'm all the way here for it because it is so beautifully done. And one more thing that I'd like to point out in the new grimoire that he's gotten from the Spade Kingdom, this was actually pointed out to me by somebody on Discord. So definitely join my Discord channel if you want to talk to me about stuff that you feel like you picked up that you want me to talk about or address or something. So if you look at the Spade Grimoire, if you literally like zoom in all the way, you can see that the border that the Grimoire has looks like, there's the square border, right? But it looks like some things are going into the other one, and then like there's something else that like is holding it in place. And what that was pointed out to me was that it was a chain, which, like, I'm not saying that Yuno has chain magic, all right? Let's get into that a little while later. What this represents is the chain that the Spade Kingdom has been bound by. So if you guys remember back when the Golden Dawn Massacre was happening, Yuno was defeating, the Dark Disciples, and he was asking them why they do this. And the Dark Disciples just said, what do you mean why, dude? Like, we just do this because we do this. And Yuno says, okay, so I understand now. The chain of evil needs to be broken, and I will be the one to do that. And I feel like this is what the chain represents, because if you guys remember, Yuno is supposed to be the light of the Spade Kingdom. He's the one who changes the, like the future of the Spade Kingdom. He brings the, whatever, right? He completely changes the evil that is lurking within the Spade Kingdom, and Yuno himself has vowed to do so, regardless of him being from the Clover Kingdom or as a Spade Royal. He said he would do that. And I think this is a beautiful line when he says, I will save the captain, I will save everyone, I will be the country's salvation, and I will become Wizard King. And that's why I will defeat you. I think beautiful dialogue by Tabata here, where he's talking about all this. I think just like it's so raw, dude. It's so raw. Like, I can't explain it any other way. It's so raw. I love it so much. And it's so cool. And I think it's going to be a very, very interesting moment right now for Zenon to be like, oh my god, he has a Spade Grimoire? This dude is from my country, and he's also from the Clover country, and he's so like, what? And Zenon is going to be so like flabbergasted, because Yuno did not have to make a pact with the devil to gain his power. And so Zenon needs to acknowledge that Yuno himself is just insanely powerful, and he happens to be the Spade Kingdom. And as we know, if you guys have been listening to the podcast, Key was talking about something like how when Zenon is about to kill Yuno, Beelzebub is like, no, I'm not going to do that, because then our contract will be null and void, because Yuno is the Spade Kingdom. And that would make sense within Xenon's line of thinking as well, because the actual people of the Spade Kingdom are the strong, and Yuno is so strong that he was able to one-shot Xenon at his 80% earlier on, and he was only able to attain that 80% because he made a contract with the devil, and Yuno didn't even need to do that. So I wonder how Xenon is going to respond to this, and I wonder how, like, if Xenon is going to give Yuno the respect that he deserves, because wow, it's like a phenomenal moment for Yuno, and I think that it is a very, very important moment for Xenon to be witness to as well. All right, so there's another thing that I want to point out before heading into the Yuno magic discussion, which was that back during the Elf arc, Zagreus specified that Yuno was the destined one who housed the elven soul of the the hybrid soul of the elven leader. So first, let's talk about what that means. So far, we've been thinking that, if you read this chapter, immediate thought is that, oh, okay, so the four-leaf belongs to the elven soul, which means the luck that he's experienced, that he's experienced so far, is actually the elven souls, and it's not Yuno's himself. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to challenge that by saying, if Yuno is the destined one, it means that he has something really important to do in the story overarching narrative, then that is outside of the Spade Kingdom, and that is outside of the Elf Saga, or like the Elven Soul inside him as well. He is destined to do something really, really insane that is probably going to alter the fabric of reality in the Black Clover universe. Maybe there's some god or like angelic stuff that's going on. Maybe that's what we'll get to when we get to his magic. And I just wanted to point that out. Also, another thing that I think people are misunderstanding is what the Elven Soul says. I concur, I agree. I am you, but you also have your own power. So what does I am you mean? The Elven Soul, if you go back to the Elf arc, when the Elven Soul was forced to be awakened or reincarnated within Yuno was in a daze, but then immediately after that, he was able to wake up and he was able to fight. So we were under the impression that the reason this happened, the reason that he was in a daze, was because of the fact that the child that died within him was unborn. So it really did not have a consciousness of its own, which is why he was in a limbo state. So I would like to challenge that by saying that the reason why that happened, and the reason that this chapter reveals, is that the child inside Yuno, like the elf child inside Yuno, has been with him since birth and has been awake since birth, which means the Elven Soul is literally Yuno. It has the exact same life experiences as Yuno. So there is literally no difference between Yuno and the Elven Soul from a personality or a sense of self perspective, which, psychological terms, we'll break that down in just a second before getting into the magic attribute. But so the Elven Soul that is inside Yuno is Yuno himself, because everything that is experienced within its life is as Yuno. So there's not he has the same relationship that Yuno has with Asta, because he himself is Yuno. So I don't know if you guys understand this, or finding it difficult to understand, but at the end of the day, what he's actually saying is that I know that literally the wind magic that you've been using is yours, but it also is mine. So similarly, the magic that you've been suppressing in yourself for so long, while it may be mine as well, it is also yours specifically, because I bring wind magic to the table. Similarly, you bring something else to the table as well. So that is a magic that you need to be using. That is a power that you need to be using. And so that's just something that I wanted to point out. So let's get into the psychological aspect of it, which is a psychological concept that I always bring up when I'm talking about Black Clover, which is the shadow archetype, or the id inside a human, which is the shadow, the unconscious sense of self that one has within themselves, which is the basis for Dante's characterization, where he says humanity's true nature is evil, where if you look within the shadow itself, within the shadow inside yourself, you will understand all the negativeness that is within you, and you'll need to, Dante's philosophy is that you need to be engulfed by it and embrace it, and use that malice or whatever that he believes is inside the shadow of a human, right? And Asta's obvious counter to this is that everybody has evil within them, but the important part of it is that you overcome that and still be good. So what Tabata does here with Yuno's characterization is that he flips that on its head a little bit. It's Tabata makes it so in the Jungian shadow archetype, the shadow that is within oneself can be positive or negative. So for people who are like who have self-confidence issues, the shadow within themselves that can bring out the arrogance within themselves is a positive to them. So similarly, if you have Yuno who's confident within himself, like on the outside, and is like all the psychological aspects of him that happen to be like, oh, I'm holier than thou, I have better luck, and I train harder than you, and I have to push my emotions down. He finally releases those emotions and realizes that the power that he's been using is actually coming from within himself, the shadow of himself that he's been using. And like Tabata does it in an interesting way, because Yuno has never cried in his entire life, so he was suppressing what he thought was his weakness, and he maintained that inside his shadow. But once he was forced to actually face his shadow self, his doubts and fears and all that stuff he came face to face with, and he finally let out his emotions, he finally became whole, and he find true identity, right? And just to give you a more technical definition of what it is, in an analytical psychology, the shadow, also known as the id, is either an unconscious aspect of the personality that the conscious ego does not identify within itself, or the entirety of the unconscious that is everything of which a person is not fully conscious. So in short, the shadow is the unknown side of a person. And because one tends to reject or remain ignorant of the least desirable aspects of one's personality, the shadow is largely negative. And like I said before, there are, however, positive aspects that may also remain hidden in one's shadow, especially within people with low self-esteem, anxieties, and false beliefs. And I think this would be a situation of false belief for Yuno. And we'll get to a Dante character analysis where he believes that he's completely engulfed within his shadow and he's embracing it. But the thing is, he's actually not really done that. And he has false beliefs. He believes that he's one with the shadow, which he's not. And we'll get to that in the Dante part of it. But so let's go back to Yuno, because what's really fascinating and really subversive on Tabata's part is, if you actually think about it, Yuno has been relying on his shadow his entire life. So then what is the actual shadow of Yuno? He split, in my opinion, this is what it is, psychologically speaking, he split his own shadow into his original magic, he's locked that away, and the elven consciousness, and he's locked that away as well. So he's using parts of his shadow. So he's using his own consciousness, of course, and he's using the magic of the elf, which is in his shadow, but he's suppressing his own original magic and the elven personality within himself inside his shadow. So that's what I think is happening here, and I think that's such an interesting way to go about, depicting the the Jungian shadow, which is, again, like I said, fascinating to me. But that's pretty much all I have for the psychological aspect of shows. But with that all said and done, I think that's pretty much it for this chapter review, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and shout out to Val Clover for the the speed art that you saw on the screen probably, and to Nyx and to Pratt for all the amazing and of course Donna too, who usually I use their artwork as well. So all of them amazing artists. Please go check out all the artists I always link in the description. And other than that, join the Discord if you want to interact more. I'll leave a link in the description below. And that's pretty much it. Like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.